Today we're going to be talking about understanding the rhetorical situation of a text. So what does the term rhetorical situation mean? Well, when we think about a text, we want to remember that they take place within a particular situation, and the individuals who are writing those texts make strategic writing choices based on that situation. When we think about a text, we want to remember that the individuals who are writing that text are operating within a particular situation, and they make strategic writing choices based on that situation. The RHS 1A standard in the AP Langenkamp course and exam description states that the rhetorical situation of a text collectively refers to the exigence, purpose, audience, context, and message. The four key terms that we want to think about here are the exigence, the purpose, the audience, and the context. So the exigence is part of the rhetorical situation that inspires, stimulates, provokes, or prompts writers to create the text. The purpose of the text is what the writer hopes to accomplish with it, and a writer may have more than one purpose in a text. The audience of the text is a crucial part of the rhetorical situation. We want to consider the individual beliefs, values, needs, and backgrounds of our intended audience. Keep in mind that the audience is never everyone. It's virtually impossible to craft a text that would speak to the beliefs, values, needs, and backgrounds of everyone in the entire world. So just remember that the intended audience isn't everyone. We want to consider specifically who would best resonate with and respond to the text that we're working with. The last term we want to consider is the context, and we want to remember that the writer is going to create that text within a particular context that includes the time, place, and occasion. This graphic organizer shows the relationships between those different concepts. So when we think about the speaker or the writer, there are really three questions that can help you understand how he or she approaches a text. So they think about the context and the exigence. And one way to remember that is to ask, what is going on around me that bothers me? Next, we're going to move to the subject and the purpose. So we want to consider what the text is about and why the author wrote it. One way to understand the subject and the purpose is our next question. What do I want to do about it? And the third concept we want to focus on is the intended audience and who can help me. So that relationship again is, what is going on around me that bothers me? What do I want to do about it? And who can help me? This is called The Formula for a Healthy Climate by Michael Ramirez, and this was published right here in San Antonio in our Express News. I think this is a really interesting example for us to use to talk about the rhetorical situation. So again, we're going to ask ourselves those three questions from the perspective of the artist. What is going on around me that bothers me? What do I want to do about it? And who can help me? This is a great example because I think this cartoon speaks to those three questions in a really interesting way. So one of the things we want to remember about the context and the exigence is that this was published in September of 2019, which was around the time that Greta Thunberg came to the United States to address the United Nations during the climate summit. So we can see where Greta Thunberg's influence or her presence is a part of the conversation that is happening in this cartoon. So what is going on around the artist that bothers him? And I think you can see from all of the really complicated equations and formulas and terms and all of the writing and the math and the crossed out information on the board that the conversation about global climate change and how to address it has become really complex and complicated. And the further we go, the fewer solutions seem to present themselves. So that would be where we would sort of begin that analysis about this cartoon. So the second question is, what do I want to do about it? And I think the answer here comes from the little boy in the bottom left-hand corner who has written, "Plant more trees." And in my reading of the cartoon, Michael Ramirez is calling on us to find simpler solutions to the problem that we can all agree on. The kinds of simple solutions that are obvious to children, that are obvious to people like Greta Thunberg, that are obvious to people who don't necessarily have a stake in who is going to make or lose money in the kinds of changes that we make, but in terms of solutions that can benefit everyone, that are simple for us to implement and understand. And then that third question here is, who can help me? So we could say that there's a couple of intended audiences here. Again, we don't want to say that the audience is everybody, because at least the people that we could eliminate are people who don't read or speak English. If you didn't read or speak English, you probably wouldn't understand a whole lot of what is going on in the cartoon. But for the everyday American citizen who is concerned about global climate change and what we are or are not doing to address it, I think this cartoon speaks to them pretty clearly. I think it also speaks to people who are frustrated by the lack of progress or the lack of action on the part of businesses, industry, our government, who are thinking about how we can address that as individuals. And then I think there's a clear way in which this cartoon is being addressed to the scientific community, because we do see the scientist in the cartoon looking down at the boy and thinking about what he's proposing versus what the boy has written on the board. So I think there are a lot of really interesting conversations to be had about text that we can do with political cartoons to practice a little bit as we're getting our feet wet and understanding the rhetorical situation.